So what should you do and what should you not do when you go to visit the National Archives in Washington, D.C.? Really, this kind of applies to probably any of the National Archives in the United States. Some of this information would probably help you at a state archives or in an archive in another country because some of the principles remain the same. But I learned a lot. I had the opportunity to go to the National Archives and I made some big mistakes. Well, mistakes. And I did some things that were good, but my prep work really made all the difference. And as I was there, I took copious notes about all of the things that I wanted to tell you, things that I wish that I had known that I didn't know before I went. And so here we go. So today we're going to cover three things primarily. We're going to cover what to do before you go to the National Archives, what to expect while you're there, and then record groups that are held at the National Archives that may be of interest to you as a genealogist. Now, probably my biggest boo-boo, my biggest don't, was my spreadsheet that I had created in my preparation to go. Now, this is kind of what I was using, and it's not terrible, and it helped me, but I totally revamped it after I left the archives and completely changed it so that I could use something different in the future. There is a handout for this video, and the spreadsheet is part of the package. So you get a 14-page text handout as well as this Excel spreadsheet, which you can then upload to whatever spreadsheet program you like to use and convert it to whatever you like. But it's what I use to prep for my National Archive visit. The reason that I do something like this is a lot of times I'm running across records as I'm researching that I feel like, oh, I need to make sure that I remember when I go to the archives, whenever that will be, that I need to ask for this record. Or maybe you're going to order them from somebody, and that's fine too. But you want to keep track of them. And what I discovered while I was there was my method was not so great. So if you want to get the handout, then you can get my updated spreadsheet as well as this handout that tells you all of these do's and don'ts. There's always more in my handouts than there is talked about in the video, always. And you can get the handout by being a member of Aimee's crew through my YouTube channel. You can be a YouTube channel member. I do have two channel membership levels, Aimee's crew and just supporting the channel. You have to be Aimee's crew to get it. And the handout of the month is what is available for the crew. So you can find the link to join Aimee's crew down below, and you can do that. Or you can order it on Etsy. The handout and the spreadsheet will be available to you if you order it through Etsy. And there is a link right up here to order that through Etsy. All of my handouts are available for you on Etsy, so you can check that out there. All right, so let me talk a little bit more about this spreadsheet that was like probably one of my most frustrating things. I had trouble remembering because I'm like, you're in a rush. You want to make the most of your time there. And I had trouble remembering, did I order this or didn't I order this? And so in my new spreadsheet, I have kind of made a place for me to note that I've ordered something and more specifically how to order it, because some of those order forms are a little bit more complicated and you don't know how to fill them out. Now the staff there is great and they'll help you, but I wanted to keep track of record group numbers that I wanted to remember and things like that. And I just put that right on that spreadsheet that I have for you. So you can check that out there. The handout also goes over in detail every different order form that I used. And so you can see exactly how I filled those out. Now, why even bother getting records at the National Archives? Let me tell you, my first visit there broke down 3 brick walls. I found an Irish ancestor's place of birth, which was huge. In Ireland, people make mistakes all the time about thinking that they have somebody because they just know they were born in Ireland, and then you find that name in some hint on Ancestry, and you think that's your guy. Names are so common in Ireland, and naming patterns make it even more difficult. So you really need to know more specifically where they lived in Ireland in order to responsibly track your family. I found out names of other people that were related to family that I can't go beyond that person. So knowing siblings or cousins is going to make a big difference as I continue to work to build these families. And I've got to tell you, an advantage for going there in person, touching these records, and you're touching these actual records. Touching these records is so powerful. I got to see the signatures of family members. I held a letter that I think it was my third great grandmother wrote in order to apply for her husband's pension. You learn so many details about their lives, battles that they may have served in that you may not be getting in other military records that you're getting access to. It's really wonderful. You want to get these records. Now, you in person is great because you get to touch them. But if you can't go, let's be real, if you can't go, the reason I get to go is because my son lives in Pennsylvania, which is 3 hours away. And so I go back regularly to visit him, and I'm just making a stop in DC a more frequent thing because I'm stupid not to. So, but maybe that's not in the cards for you. So you can order the records. You can order them through the National Archives. But my friend Brian Reinhardt, who I did my other 2 videos with, is fantastic. He will do it for you for less, and he will do it more quickly. He actually went with me on this first trip. He prepped me for it and did a fantastic job, but it was so much fun to go with him because we had a blast. We had so much fun. It was just great to be there as friends. It was great to be there with somebody that knew the ropes. If you want to hire Brian to do your research for you, he's offering people that watch my YouTube a coupon code that'll get you 10% off. Use the coupon code Aimee. You can spell it either my way, AIMEE, or AMY, and he will give you 10% off. All right, so what else should you know before you go? Okay, our first thing before you go. Besides that spreadsheet and keeping track of those records, you just got to do the research. You need to look for their military records. You need to look on Fold 3. You want to look on Ancestry, on FamilySearch. You need to find all that you can about their military service because you never know what you're going to need while you're there. There were a few instances of things that I thought I had what I needed, but I actually had to go back online on my computer and find some other records that I didn't note the information. Thus, the improved spreadsheet, it kind of helps me recognize the stuff that I needed to pull that I didn't know I needed to pull. And you also want to think of what kind of records might be available for that person. And to do that, you kind of need to understand, 1, the records, and 2, the process. So for instance, if somebody wanted to get a bounty land grant for military service, there were multiple steps to the process. They need to get a warrant and they need to do this and that. I outlined all of this on that handout for you, or you can do the research yourself. But you want to understand those steps because there's different records associated with the different steps, all right? So you want to know what those are. And on my spreadsheet, I actually made different tabs for some of those different records to remind me of those different steps and the other things that I might want to be looking for. On the military records, you want to be looking not only for their pension, which is the one everybody talks about, but you want to be looking for their military service records. Oh my gosh, I found some great information in military service records. Now, some of it's on Fold 3, but not all of it. So you want to get it at the National Archives. And at the National Archives, they also have the medical records. So we're not talking Revolutionary War medical records, but you can get Civil War, and they can tell you a lot if they were hospitalized, things like that. Those were really interesting. All right, so what do you want to know when you're there? What are some of the things that I did wrong and some of the things that I did right? All right, so what I did wrong. When you first get in, and I talk about some of this stuff in that video that I did with Brian, I'm going to show those videos at the end of this one. There'll be links to those videos. But some of the stuff that I did wrong was when you first get in there and you get research card, they say if you'd watch the video. Well, I'm like, yeah, I watched the video. And then they said, well, we don't see you listed as having watched the video. And I'm like, I know I watched the video. And so they went ahead and gave me the card, which was really nice of them. But when I went home, I looked into things a little bit more detailed. And I gotta tell you, I hadn't watched the right video. It's kind of confusing. So National Archives, would you please make this clearer? Anyway, so when you go to their page, you see this video link right there. And it takes you to this video right here, which is a great video. But it's not the video they're talking about. You have to scroll down further, and then you see a spot where the link to the video and training is that they want you to complete before you come into the National Archives. Now, if you don't complete it before you come in, you can do it there. They have computers for you, and they'll tell you to sit down and watch the video. And you have to take tests even and everything like that. You watch some information, you take some tests. There's like 8 steps to it. But it's very informative, and it tells you what you can and cannot bring into the research room and a lot of really important information. So it's a fantastic video, and I have watched it. I just watched it after the fact. All right, so in the video description, I am going to put the link to the correct video that you need to do before you go into the National Archives. One of the other things that the researcher staff told me to do is take a photograph of my researcher card once I got it. Because, so in case I misplaced mine or something like that, that photograph will suffice. So great idea. Make sure you do that. You want to get there early. I mentioned that before. Brian and I talked about that in the other video. He really recommended that we do that. And it really makes a difference because it takes a little while to get your card, and you want to be there for that first record pull at 9:30. And so you want to get in there right at 9 o'clock so you can get everything done, and you have to put your researcher card number on any research record pulls. And so you got to get that done first. So you want to make that first pull, because then after that, you're just kind of waiting. But after you have gotten all that stuff done and gotten your card and put in some records that you want to grab first, then you can go back to the lockers and dump the stuff like your coat and other things that you can't bring up to the research room, like food. You can bring lunch, by the way, and eat in the cafeteria below, but you can't bring food or water or anything up to the research room. So you have a locker space where you can put all that. You need a quarter for that locker, so make sure you bring a quarter. And after that, then you can go up to the research room and get ready, because that's where they're going to bring your records once they've pulled them for you. And when you first go into the research room, there's going to be a guard there, and they're going to look over everything that you're bringing in. And that training will tell you what you can and can't bring in. My handout goes over that as well. But some of the big things are, you can bring your computer, you can bring your phone, but you cannot bring a spiral bound notebook or some kind of, it has to be loose papers, okay? So, and they're going to stamp each paper because they want to know that you're not taking stuff out when you go to leave that you didn't bring in. One of the other things too, right over there by that guard, are some heavy plastic sheets, and there's not a ton of them. So you want to grab that early on, and that you can use to lay on top of a document to flatten it to get a better scan. And they also have some weights there too. So you kind of want to grab that stuff first thing before you can't get them. The other thing that you want to make sure that you grab right away when you go into the research room is you want to get the scanner. Their scanners were great, but a couple things you need to be aware of with the scanner. The scanner uses a USB connector, and my computer doesn't have any USB ports as these computers are getting newer. Mine only has a USB-C port. And fortunately, I kind of expected that, so I brought a converter that will convert a USB to USB-C. You want to bring that for your computer. And make sure you bring power cords and stuff like that for your computer, because you're going to be there for a long time. And you're going to be using your computer because the scanner is going to go directly into your computer. So you've got to have something for that scanner to hook up to. Once you get your scanner and you're waiting for those first records to come up to the room, you can download the software for the scanner, and there's instructions on how to do that. But then I want you to look at your scanner settings, and I go into that in more detail in the handout as well. But I want you to make sure you scan at like the highest level. And also I recommend that you scan in color and not black and white. A lot of these documents are black and white, but you want to get the full color of all of them. And you don't want to forget, oh, well, this is a color document and this wasn't. So anyway, a few more tips there in the handout. And I'm sorry to keep mentioning the handout, but hey, I got to support the channel somehow. So by buying the handout, you're supporting the channel. So thank you. Now, one other thing that you want to make sure that you do is that you can scan any number of documents before you save it to your computer. And that's good and bad. One, in the beginning, I wouldn't scan very many. I would make sure it's working right for you first, okay? So don't do big groups initially. But even like with large pension files, I broke it into groups just because I didn't want to have a problem and lose everything. But before you save your scans to your computer, this was a big one. You need to make sure that you look at them, because sometimes the auto sizing was not correct. And you want to make sure you take a look at how they framed every image, and it takes time, but you don't want to get home and have a record not scanned properly, because that would be such a bummer. Another little trick that I didn't know the first day, but I did it the second day, was people that knew what they were doing would push their documents against one of the walls in your little cubicle. And that helped you keep the documents like together and organized, because then you have to put them back in the folder, and they're so fragile. You want to do everything that you can to kind of handle them the least, and you're not going to like like how we do with the document, like hit them on the table to get them all, like lined up. You don't want to do that with these records. So use that wall to stack your documents. Good little hint, huh? And then something else that I found out while I was there, that if you're coming back within 5 business days, they'll hold records that you've pulled. So you don't have to wait for that first pull when you come in the next day. So you can come in and you can get right to work, which is wonderful. And they're super nice about that. So they'll hold them for you there in the research room. Now, one of my big don'ts, I brought my phone in and I didn't turn it on silent right away because I just didn't think about it. And of course, somebody called me and immediately somebody in the research room was like, please silence your phone. So don't be embarrassed like I was. I wasn't going to take the call. I just didn't turn it on silent. So make sure you silence your phone before you go in the research room. That was one of my big don'ts. All right, so let me end now with some of those records that you want to be sure that you're thinking about and looking at when you're there at the National Archives. I know there's much, much more, but these are records that are of particular interest to genealogists. 1, military pensions. Now, Revolutionary War pensions are already on fold 3, but Civil War, War of 1812, the Spanish-American War, those you will find in D.C. World War I and later, you're going to find in St. Louis. Other files that you want to get there. You want to be getting their service records. This is the same time period, okay? You want to be getting their service records. You want to be getting their medical service records. You also want to see if they had any military warrants and any land grants. And then the other thing that a lot of people don't always talk about are those cash sales that you may see. If you go on the Bureau of Land Management and you see that your family was granted land in Kansas, they got this land and it'll say that it was a cash land sale. That means they paid cash for that land, but the land was being offered by the government. But there's documentation on those cash land sales there at the National Archives. So it's not just military records. Can you tell how excited I have been to talk to you about this? It was such a fantastic experience and I loved going and I got so much information for my family. I want to end actually with a little video that I did while I was there to talk to you about how I was feeling in that moment because it was pretty powerful. At the end of that, you'll see the links to the 2 videos that I did with Brian that also talked about some important things you need to do to prep for a National Archives visit. Whether you order them yourself or you go in person, may you find some wonderful information about your family. I ended today with a document. I'm related to a man by the name of Carding Jackson, who was born in about I can't remember, late 1700s. And in a land entry file, I found a handwritten letter by him stating that he had settled the land at a certain time and he wanted to purchase this land in Chicago, which is like downtown Chicago now. And I never expected to find that in a land entry file. And not only that, he had to have 3 men testify that he had lived there when he said he did. He has been a brick wall for me. I have not been able to figure out his parents with the name Jackson. And Orrin Jackson was one of the signers of that. So now I'm researching Orrin Jackson. This was just so cool. I wanted to record how I was feeling. It was a very emotional experience taking a look at all this stuff. And I'm just so glad I had the opportunity to do it.